The wind carried the heavy scent of rain and asphalt as Matthew Cole parked his old truck beside the gray, barbed fences of Ridgeway State Penitentiary. The Army veteran sat for a moment, fingers gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the crumbling concrete walls that held two men whose lives had spiraled into darkness long before this day. He was there because of a letter, one that arrived 3 weeks ago with shaky handwriting and an official stamp. Request for visitation, urgent, from inmates Jake and Ryan Heller. Matthew didn't know them personally, but he knew of them. The Heller twins, notorious bikers who led a gang across state lines, were serving life sentences for a violent robbery gone wrong. Yet, the letter wasn't about confession or forgiveness. It was about something they called their last wish. Matthew had almost thrown the letter away. He had enough on his plate, raising his 10-year-old daughter Emma alone, running a small auto repair shop to stay afloat. But something about their words wouldn't leave him. We've done a lot wrong, sir, but you're the only man who might understand why we did what we did. We need you to do something for us, before it's too late. Now, here he was, walking through metal detectors, escorted by a guard who smelled faintly of cigarettes and coffee. Strange request, huh? The guard muttered. They don't ask for family. They asked for you by name. Matthew nodded silently. I served with their father, he finally said. Before he died in Iraq. The guard stopped and looked at him. Well, that explains a lot. They entered a narrow visitation room, thick glass between them and the prisoners. But instead of two rough bikers in shackles, Matthew saw two pale men with hollow eyes. The twins were identical, though time had dulled their youth. Tattoos climbed their necks, but their hands trembled slightly as they lifted them to wave. Jake, the older by a few minutes, spoke first. Mr. Cole, thanks for coming. Didn't think you'd show. Matthew sat down. I almost didn't. Ryan gave a weak chuckle. Can't blame you. Not many folks would visit a pair like us. Matthew studied them. You said this was your last wish. What's going on? The twins exchanged a glance, then Jake leaned forward. They diagnosed us with something bad. Stage 4 lung cancer. Both of us. Docs say a few months, tops. A lump formed in Matthew's throat. Despite everything they'd done, there was something deeply human in that admission, two brothers facing the end together. So what is it you want from me? He asked quietly. Jake exhaled. Our father, Sergeant Heller, he was your commanding officer, right? Matthew nodded. He saved my life in Mosul. Pulled me out after a roadside bomb went off. Didn't make it himself. Ryan's voice cracked. He wrote us once before he died. Said if anything ever happened to him, he hoped you'd look out for us, make sure we didn't forget who we were. Matthew's chest tightened. I didn't know he had kids back then. Jake smiled bitterly. He didn't tell you much, I guess. We were 15 when he left. When he came home in a flag-draped coffin, we lost everything. Mom fell apart, we hit the streets, joined a biker club that promised brotherhood. Turned out it was just another war, and we were on the wrong side. Ryan slid a folded photo toward the glass. This was him with you. Iraq, 2006. Matthew pressed his hand against the glass, staring at the dusty faces in the picture, himself, younger, alongside a smiling Sergeant Heller. I remember that day, he whispered. Jake swallowed hard. Our last wish isn't about us. It's about him. He always talked about this small fishing cabin by the lake, said he wanted his ashes spread there someday. But when he died, the army buried him in a government cemetery. We never got to take him home. Ryan added, they cremated him years later after the headstone was vandalized. His ashes got shipped to the storage facility in town. We tracked them down through a vet organization. They're still there, unclaimed. Jake's voice lowered. We can't leave this world knowing our old man's still waiting for peace. We need you to take him home. Take him to that lake. Scatter his ashes where he wanted. The room went silent except for the buzz of the fluorescent light above. Matthew didn't answer right away. His heart pounded. You're asking me to do this for the man who saved me. You don't even want it to be about you. Jake smiled faintly. We made our choices. This is about him, and what he believed in. Ryan looked down. You'll be the last one to see us alive, Mr. Cole. After next month, we'll be gone. If you could just send word when it's done, that's all we ask. The veteran exhaled, eyes glistening. You have my word. 3 weeks later, Matthew found himself standing in a musty storage room, holding a plain cardboard box labeled, Sergeant Thomas Heller. Inside was a metal urn, cold to the touch. He thought about the twins, still locked behind those gray walls, counting their remaining days. Emma stood beside him, clutching her jacket. Dad, whose ashes are those? He looked at her gentle face, so full of life. A soldier's. A good man who once saved my life. His sons asked me to do something for him. Are they soldiers too? She asked innocently. Matthew hesitated. Not exactly. But they're still someone's sons. The next morning, he loaded the urn, a small camping stove, and a folded flag into his truck. The lake was 2 hours north, a place surrounded by pine trees, still and quiet. When he arrived, fog drifted over the water like ghosts whispering secrets. He carried the urn to the end of an old wooden dock and knelt. You finally made it home, Tom, he murmured. Wish your boys could see this. He unscrewed the lid, letting the ashes scatter into the breeze. They spiraled gracefully before touching the water, vanishing beneath gentle ripples. For a long time, Matthew stood there in silence, the flag folded against his chest. Then he took out his phone, recording a short message. Boys, it's done. Your father's home. He sent it to the prison's mail system under their inmate ID. He thought that would be the end of it. A month later, a letter arrived. The envelope bore the Ridgway seal again. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Mr. Cole, we received your message. Thank you. You did what we couldn't. Dad's home now. We wanted to tell you something before we go. The robbery we were caught for wasn't about money. We found out the gang was smuggling weapons meant for local kids, teenagers. We tried to stop them. Things went bad. People died. We took the blame to protect the others. We're not heroes, but we didn't want his name to die dirty. When the end comes, please know you gave us peace. Jake and Ryan. Matthew sat for a long time staring at the letter, his throat tight. The next day, the news hit. Twin inmates, Jake and Ryan Heller, passed away hours apart due to advanced illness. Both requested to be cremated. The prison chaplain called Matthew personally. They mentioned you in their final statement. Said you gave their father what they couldn't, a soldier's homecoming. Matthew drove to Ridgway one last time to collect the small urn that held both brothers' ashes. On the ride home, the radio played softly, an old country tune about brothers and second chances. He stopped by the lake again at sunset. The water glowed orange and gold, reflecting the sky like molten glass. He placed the urn beside their father's resting place. Tom, he said quietly, they're home now too. He scattered the ashes over the same water, and for a moment, 3 streams of light shimmered across the surface, like spirits reunited after a long war. Emma, standing beside him, asked, Dad, were they bad men? Matthew smiled sadly. They made mistakes. But deep down, they just wanted to come home. As the sun dipped below the trees, a sudden gust of wind blew across the lake, rippling the water in concentric circles. Matthew swore he heard faint laughter, 2 voices echoing in the distance, free at last. He saluted, a single tear tracing his cheek. When he returned to his truck, he found a small envelope tucked under the driver's seat. Inside was a metal dog tag, old, rusted, but still legible. Sergeant Thomas Heller, U.S. Army. Brotherhood never ends. He didn't remember putting it there. Maybe he had missed it when handling the ashes, or maybe it was something else. From that day on, Matthew hung the tag beside his daughter's photo in the shop. When customers asked about it, he simply said, it's a reminder that redemption is real. Even for those the world forgets. Years passed. Emma grew up, and every Memorial Day, she and her father visited that same lake. They'd bring wildflowers and place them on the shore. One spring morning, as they stood by the water, a man in a worn leather jacket approached. His beard was graying, his eyes kind but haunted. You must be Cole, he said. Name's Mason. I rode with the Heller twins once. Before they went down. Matthew nodded slowly. You knew them. Better than most, Mason said. They told me about what you did before they passed. You gave them peace. They wanted you to have this. He handed Matthew a patch, black and silver, the emblem of their old biker club, but the words had been stitched over, Brotherhood Redeemed. Matthew's hand trembled as he accepted it. They really changed at the end, didn't they? Mason smiled faintly. They did. Said their old man always talked about honor. You reminded them what that meant. He tipped his head in respect, mounted his bike, and rode off, the sound of the engine fading into the trees. Matthew turned back toward the water, the wind brushing his hair. "You hear that, Tom?" he murmured. "Your boys finally found their way." And as the ripples shimmered across the lake, he felt it again, that quiet presence of three souls at peace. Sometimes the loudest redemption comes not from the ones who live perfectly, but from those who fall hardest and still reach for light before the end. For Matthew Cole, the single dad veteran who once thought he'd lost his purpose, fulfilling a dying wish had given him something greater, a reminder that even in death, honor lives on, and family, no matter how broken, always finds its way home.